Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Project Uproar podcast. We have me, Igor, and Ryan.
Igor, nice to be here for a second time.
Yeah. So we're your co-hosts, and just before we get into today's topic, which is going to be about habits and routines, I just wanted to say at the beginning that clip you hear is about Fight Club, and that's actually because Fight Club has kind of a lot of the same messages we want to kind of awaken in people or just get people thinking about it, which is the fact that, you know, there are alternatives to life. You don't have to kind of give in to the idea that you are your khakis or you have to work jobs you don't like if just to make money to kind of maintain this image of doing well. You know, it's much more important to have a life you really like worth living and let's say not have all those material luxuries. And Project Uproar, the name itself, the project part comes from the idea of Project Mayhem. Kind of it was inspired by that. And Uproar, just the idea of, you know, waking people out of autopilot mode, which, you know, we seem to fall into easily if we're not constantly working on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that book, the book and the movie itself, both inspired me greatly. Like just that idea of, you know, there's a lot of violence in the movie, but I really think the violence has not just kind of, it's not just a literal thing. Like it could be taken metaphorically, just the idea of, you know, to wake yourself out of ideology, you have to kind of just violently go through this process of awakening or moving past, like I said, like ideology or our societal expectations. So yeah, it's a great influence on me, and I highly recommend if you haven't either watched the movie or read the book to do so, because it's a great narrative. So like Igor said, today we're going to be looking at habits and routines. We have some books who are going to talk about that have influenced us. So for myself, I think what we're going to do is similar to how we did last episode. We're just going to I'm going to at least start talking about my own experience with habits and routines and just my own personal struggles to begin with, and now kind of where I'm at with my daily routine. So after I graduated from my master's, which was a couple years ago, I found it very difficult to carve out time to read and write. Like these were two things that had been very important to me during university, during high school, and during my master's. And when I finished my master's and went into the quote unquote kind of real world of working, I found it really difficult to read and write and carve out time to accomplish these things. So, what I tried to do at first was try after work, after teaching, or during breaks throughout the day to spend a little bit of time here and there reading and writing. But I really felt I couldn't really build any sort of momentum to continue. And I also felt tired after working all day to kind of go back after school and read and write after teaching. So I was having a tough time after my master's really adjusting to a routine and a schedule. And developing good habits for myself. Really this inability to create time to read and write and be fed by books and express myself through writing really left, I think, a void in my life. And I felt like I always felt trying to find ways to fill this void, and I couldn't really do it. And really what it came back to was not having an effective schedule. So what I decided to do just like a few months ago was I decided to change up my schedule completely. I took the risk, changed up my schedule completely so I could try to take time for things that really matter to me. And one thing I did when I started was I noticed that at night, I wasn't really doing anything really I would consider productive for my self-development. So I was spending the last couple hours before going to bed just watching random YouTube videos. And they weren't even like, you know, YouTube videos that were for self-improvement. They were just things that just were there to just waste time before going to bed. I never really thought deeply about what time I went to bed. I just went to bed when I felt tired, and that could be later. So I was waking up, you know, just in time to get ready for work, and I was always in a rush. So I didn't really like that schedule. So what I'm happy to say is that what I decided to do a few months ago was to change up my schedule and carve out time to incorporate things that were very important to me. So what I decided to do, which was something I would never thought I would do, I never thought I would end up doing, was I ended up getting up a lot earlier than I thought. So right now, what I do on at least weekdays, I get up at 5 a.m. And what my routine is, what my daily routine consists of, is I go to the gym early at 5 a.m. That's the thing that kind of just jump starts me out of bed, because that was something else I was missing out on. I wanted to go to the gym more. I wasn't doing so. I was going to the gym maybe once a week, and I saw my physical health really deteriorating, and I was starting to become a little bit overweight. So going to the gym along with reading and writing was very important to me. So I thought, you know what? Get up early before work, go to the gym right away. So I started getting up at 5 a.m. I saw some YouTube videos that talked about getting up at 5 a.m. and how it helped other people. So I decided to get up at 5 a.m. And then what I do after getting up at 5 a.m. is I go to a local coffee shop, do some reading for about an hour, do some writing for about an hour, and then head to work. So right before I even get to work, I've already done my workout for the day. I've done my reading for the day, more reading than I've ever done in the past couple of years. And I've been able to consistently write almost every day, at least every weekday, which is, these are 3 goals which I had before, and just making that adjustment to my daily routine has done wonders for me. And you wouldn't imagine, the positive effects it has, just being able to go into work and knowing I've accomplished these 3 important things for myself. And going forward, I'm hoping I could continue this routine. It's done a lot for me. And Igor, I don't know if you want to take the time now to talk a little bit about maybe either your morning routine or even your routine throughout the day.
No, I think you started off in a great way where you talked about kind of your struggles a bit. So I'll do that, and then I'll let you guys know where I'm at right now. Yeah, for me, I was probably way worse than Ryan in university. Ryan, I always actually envied how like on top of stuff Ryan seemed, while I was more so a procrastinator, in the sense that it's not like I didn't do work. I did a lot of the research part, but the actual writing for essays and stuff, I kept pushing off, and then I ended up sometimes working like pulling, never an all-nighter. I always got a bit of sleep. I can say I never pulled a full all-nighter, but I did, stay up working the night before oftentimes. And that's obviously, it wasn't good. I still managed to do pretty well, but at the same time, it wasn't good just for stress levels and stuff like that. Like, it was unnecessarily stressful. So I definitely wanted to improve that. But for often in the undergrad, I did kind of find myself repeating that pattern of leaving stuff till the last minute. In masters, I'd say I got better. I conquered it, especially in the second semester. I ended up finishing. I was one of the first people to finish the final master's research paper, which is crazy for me because I'm usually like one of the last ones to finish stuff. So I think it's safe to say that I conquered that in a way. And it was pretty much through the idea of, you know what, just sit in this chair for 1 hour, 2 hours every day. And no matter what happens, just stay in that chair and write. And I kind of tricked my brain in that way into taking the pressure off. And once the pressure is off, then all of a sudden the creativity can flow. You can actually start writing. That's what I find in my own experience. So that was key. Actually, just sitting in that chair was literally 80% of the work. Like, there's that saying, showing up is 80% of the work. Literally, it's true. And once you actually start writing, you start to get into a flow state, and it ends up being enjoyable even, but it's that actually sitting there tricking your brain to start doing the work that's the real challenge. And after my university experience, I had the benefit, because I do pretty much YouTube. I run an online business, working on different social media. So my job is pretty much decided by myself, like my work hours. So I can schedule the day any way I want. And because I can do that, it gave me a great opportunity to really try out different things. And for a long time, I did first thing in the morning. Before me and Ryan started going early to the gym, I always did self-development reading and meditation. Those things I always did. And then I threw in writing after that. And then we started going to the gym. And now what I've been trying to do for the past week was go to the gym for, let's say, I wake up at 4:30. I'm ready around 5 a.m. for when Ryan comes picks me up. We go to the gym. I come back. Then that's when I start working on writing right away now, because I found that writing is more difficult to do for me to actually sit down and do than self-development reading and meditation, because I've been doing both self-development reading maybe even for a decade every morning, like at least 30 minutes a day. I've been very good with that. I got into it early. And then meditation I've been doing for like 3 years, on and off, but pretty much consistently for 3 years. So those things are almost like I can do autopilot. I can do with little willpower. But as your day goes on, it seems like your willpower muscles kind of drain. So it's really important, I find, for me to do stuff that like I think is really the most difficult to actually sit down and do during the early parts of the day. So that's why now I do writing, at least an hour of writing right when I come from the gym. And then I do some YouTube recording, editing stuff that pretty much is the main stuff that I do for my business that can also be difficult to do. I try to get that out of the way. So ideally, I'm finished all those really difficult tasks by 12 o'clock. And then I might take a nap, because I'm really a fan of naps at this point. And then maybe only like 30 minutes, tops an hour. And then I start with the self-development reading, with the meditation, and then anything else I want to do. And like Ryan said, once you do those, your most important things in the morning, you carry that sense of accomplishment throughout the day. And everything else is, whatever happens, you at least did that stuff. And I find that that's actually a huge benefit, because if I remember back when I didn't write, and now I've been writing every day. I'm more obsessive than Ryan is about it. I remember what Jerry Seinfeld said, like, make the X's on the calendar connect, and just keep them connecting every day you work on your craft. And so far I've been doing it for 99 days. Today was the 99th day, writing every day. And so I'm almost in the 3 digits, which is exciting. And I remember before I did that, before I wrote every day, I'd feel like there was a cloud over my head, like the whole time before I actually wrote. And if I didn't write, it would like carry on. So now once I write in the morning, that like the clouds part and I can finally like enjoy my day, which I couldn't do if I didn't get that out of the way. So ironically, even though it seems like more work to do in the morning, I feel a lot better and more relaxed during the rest of the day.
Yeah, so as you could tell, Igor and I have very different ways that we spend during the day. So like I said, I kind of have this sort of more conventional teaching job where I know the hours I'm going to be working, whereas Igor has this business oriented life where he doesn't have those specific commands that he has to show up at a specific place and put in certain hours and leave. So we both approach our day differently, but something we both have in common, as you could tell, is that idea of getting up early. And for yourself, when we talk this episode, this is not something that we're talking that's prescriptive, that you have to follow. We're not telling you this is something you have to follow. We're just telling you what works for us. And something I found that's very valuable for at least myself is getting up early, and earlier than what I did before. Before I would get up probably around 6:30 or 7 on a work day, which is still early, but is kind of, I would say, average on a work day. And what I would find myself doing is just scrambling to get my lunch ready, to take a shower, and to run off to work in time, which was never productive. I'd get to work in just such a panic. And I think getting up earlier and allowing for that time to include things that I want to include just has done so much for me. Like, though at first it was very, very difficult. I always hated getting up early. Now I'm more used to it, obviously, but I hated doing so. Just that idea of getting up earlier than you do before, just to fit in certain activities or interests that you could do before you even start your day, I think is important because it's. I know there's someone who I watched on YouTube and read a little bit about his stuff. Jocko Willink, who is a military. He's an ex Navy SEAL who has now become more of a public speaker and a writer. And what he says is that, when you get up early, you kind of are earlier than you're used to getting up. You kind of are defeating your enemy to start, right? The enemy is that voice in your head that tells you, no, you could just wait to the last possible moment to get up and then rush about your day. But being able to kind of slay that dragon, as he says, allows you to start your day and almost kind of like win a battle getting out of bed. And then that momentum carries on throughout the day. So for myself, what was important was going to the gym. So I get up early, like I said, 5 a.m. You don't have to 5 a.m., but I get up earlier than I did before at least. And I go right away to the gym and try to get that adrenaline going. Have certain goals at the gym, and then I fit in those other interests that I have. And just that idea of getting up early has just done wonders for me. And like I said, like Igor and I kind of go, what I've done is kind of like what we said the last episode. It's good to, if you want to ever start something, whether it be some sort of interest-based thing or, physical activity, team up with someone else who has a similar goal and try to keep yourself accountable. So we both decided to create this goal of ours to get up early and to go to the gym. So we both do that similarly in the morning, but then we go our separate ways. But just that achieving those two goals in the morning just does wonders for me, at least. And it's even if I have a bad day at work, I could say to myself, you know what, at least I've accomplished the getting up early, the reading, the writing, and the going to the gym. That's 4 things I've accomplished before even going to work. Like, that just puts you in such a positive mindset. And I think for myself, like I said, it's done wonders. Now, like I said, something else we want to do this episode is also talk about certain books that have influenced us. So myself, the thing that really influenced me to get up a little bit earlier, whether you're someone who wants to get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or just, a half an hour earlier to start your day because you know that you're kind of getting up at the last possible moment and you're just rushing throughout your day and you're feeling exhausted. A book that influenced me, not necessarily for its narrative merit, because I don't think it's the most well-written book I've ever read, but it would definitely had some powerful messages in it. The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, I think had some powerful messages in terms of the importance of starting your day on a good foot. And that's what you really want to do. When we talk about morning routines, it's not necessarily about getting up early, but putting some effort into starting your day. Because I think if you start your day well in a way that fits you, it'll carry those positive vibes throughout the day. So in his book, I mean, as you could tell, 5 a.m. Club, it's talking about the idea of getting up earlier to fit in certain things. And what the book is basically saying, some of the lessons, is that, routines are built through habits, and habits have a certain cycle to it. What Robin Sharma, who's someone right now, he's become a pretty prominent public speaker and writer. He's written books, such as oh my goodness, sorry, it's slipping out of my head. What's the book?
The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
There's a whole series of those books.
Absolutely,
like
things that are similar. Yeah. There's one book about why it's important to be remembered a certain way when you die. Anyways, in this specific book, he talks all about the importance of building certain habit cycles to create productive routines, and talks about all the makeup of a cycle. He talks about the trigger, which is that thing that gets you to produce the habit, the ritual of the habit, and seeking the reward, and just the importance of creating repetition with this habit cycle. He also says that it takes about a minimum, I mean, give or take, you could argue whether you agree with this notion or not, but he says it takes about a minimum of 66 days to develop a new habit, and about 22 days to destroy old ones. So again, he's very technical on this. You don't have to agree with him, but what he's saying is, it's not just something that you could just do overnight and expect that it's going to continue. It takes a lot of effort. And what he also says in the book, which I think is interesting, which again, you don't have to follow, but on page 206 of the 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma talks about his 20-20-20 plan. So he kind of breaks up the first hour of when he wakes up into 20-minute increments. And again, you could check that out on page 206. I don't want to get into specifics of what he talks about, but he's very structured in his morning, and he develops this. He tries to convey the structure through the narrative in the story. Then it's a kind of a unique self-help book in the sense that it's not just a direct kind of telling of something. He tries to write this self-help book within the narrative of a fiction story. And in the story, it talks about the 20-20-20 method. So I'd suggest, taking it out if you're interested in trying to develop a certain structure. But I mean, the main moral of the book, I think, is just that idea of, we should try to start our day positively and not just kind of trying to chase our tail in the morning and, just not thinking about the importance of how we're going to start our day. So 5 a.m. Club was a book that its message inspired me. And Igor, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about either that book or something else.
Yeah, well, that book specifically, I actually heard about it. I don't know if it was from you right before, before we decided to do this together, I was trying to wake up early, and I read, there's another book, was it Daily Rituals, Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah, and in that book, there was a lot of talk about a lot of writers and other artists and creative people who accomplished a lot, and they did so by waking up early. And Murakami, one of my favorite writers, when he's in novel writing mode, he wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every day and starts working. And that pattern about successful people waking up early just kept popping up in my life. I kept seeing it, and I was like, okay, you know what, I want to incorporate this into my own life. And then I started doing so before we even started going to the gym. And then it was on and off. I wasn't perfect with it, but then I started. I heard about the 5 a.m. Club probably from Ryan, and then I started actually reading it because I wanted to. I wanted to actually motivate myself to do so. So when I'd wake up, you want that sense of camaraderie, someone else is doing it before you, and that's what the 5 a.m. Club gives you. There's the characters in the actual story are doing the same thing you want to do, and it's talking about how beneficial it is to wake up early, right? So you're kind of reaffirming that first thing in the morning, helps you get up, helps you be like, oh cool, I'm making positive life decisions, all of that. So I find when I'm trying to do something, whether it's running, whether it's waking up early, reading books on the subject by writers I like is very useful. And Sharma is actually one of the first self-development writers I got into. One of the first self-development books I read was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari back when I was in high school. So that kind of was, in a lot of ways, a book that opened the floodgates to other self-development books. So Robin Sharma, when I saw he wrote the 5 a.m. Club, I was definitely open to it. I was trying to wake up early anyways. And yeah, I started reading it. It helped me out definitely by having Ryan there to eventually say he wants to wake up early too. We hold each other accountable. That was something else very useful. And I think everyone should find someone to try to hold themselves accountable to habits if you can. That's very useful. Not to say you can't otherwise, but yeah, that's really good. I really like that idea of the 66 days too. I think that's based on some newer research about how long it takes to form a habit on average. I think in his first book, he said something around The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. He said something around 21 days to build a habit, but now it's changed to 66. And I mean, that idea it's good because you have something to aim to. So even though I passed that 66 days with writing every day, I'm on 99 now. When you have that goal you're working towards, and you're like, okay, it's going to be more automatic, more easy after I get to that goal, it's good. It's a way to motivate yourself. And I think we're going to talk about when we go to the War of Art, which is the end of the month book club book, to remind you once more that The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield talks about how every day, no matter how much you do it, it's still a challenge. And that is true, but still, it's easier once you start developing that habit and you start to realize when you're getting off track earlier in the day. So I really like that about the book as well. The 2020 principle, like I'm not a big fan of sticking like too closely to stuff. So that, for example, I didn't want to adopt that. I think that's important while we're reading, to take stuff that works for us, discard stuff that doesn't. The 2020, it's a good idea. It's just that, you want to be flexible to what you want to do. If we were doing the gym thing, that takes more than 20 minutes, right? So we want to be able to, do that, do some other stuff, set your own times, and you don't need to fit everything in at the same time. Experiment is what I'd say. That's what I've been doing a lot, and trying to see what works, what doesn't. And yeah, that book really, really did help me out, just because it motivated me to wake up at 5 a.m. because he was telling me it's a good thing. And when someone tells you something's a good thing and you're doing it, you're more likely to keep it up. And the Daily Rituals book was good because, again, what I got from it, a lot of creative people write in the morning. I think I know why. I think it's because of that cloud I was talking about, just following you around until you do. And you're kind of like in this half alive, half dead state until you actually get down and do it and clear the skies for that day. And then you kind of earned your rest at that point. But otherwise, you're always like, oh man, I know I should have done this, but I didn't. It sucks. So I think that's why a lot of writers write in the morning. And just the idea of prioritizing the most important stuff first in the day, I think that's so key. Like, again, I really think that your willpower goes down as the day goes on. And if you just take care of that most important stuff first, you're going to build that positive momentum. So you're not going to be rushing. You're not going to be just reacting. You're going to be deciding what you do, and the rest of your day is going to follow suit.
Yeah, I mean, Daily Rituals was a great book, and a lesson I learned from it was it's not necessarily essential to get up early to do your work, whatever that work is. But what all of these writers, I think, except for the exception of one writer was actually, interestingly enough, the book talked about F. Scott Fitzgerald's difficulty in sticking with the schedule. But besides him, most of the writers and thinkers in the book and artists stick to some sort of structure to get their work done, whether it be they were early risers like W.H. Auden, where he said his sharpest was at 7 to 11:30 a.m., so he'd get up early. Murakami, like we said, gets up at 4 a.m. Kant talked about him getting up early and developing a certain teaching routine that would allow him to not have to focus as much on his teaching and more on his writing. Or whether it was someone like Beethoven, who he would get at his most creative in the afternoons, when he'd go for a walk and bring a pencil and kind of staff paper and just write out his music. Or the book talked about Freud, who would work all day at his practice and then spend the nights and late nights and evenings working on his studies. So something I noticed, just a commonality, even though everyone kind of did their own thing, was they each had a structure that they stuck to. They had a routine that they would not deviate from. And I think that's very important if you want to start any sort of creative endeavor, is having some sort of structure that you hold yourself accountable to, or if even better, you have someone else who holds yourself accountable to that structure. Another book that was very influential on myself was, and it was published a couple years ago, and it's still sells a lot, is The Power of Habit, which talks all about how routines are based upon habits, which habits are these things that we try to repeat in our lives. So in the book, it talks about what a habit loop is. A habit loop is sort of like what Sharma talks about. We talk about a habit cycle. So what a habit loop is it's a 3-component loop. This loop starts out with a cue. So it's that thing that kind of sets you off to pursue a certain habit. So it could be experienced through like a sense or a smell, or maybe an object you see in your kitchen, or a feeling that you get when you walk into work and see your boss. Some sort of cue, something that sets you off. What that leads to is a routine. So partaking in a certain act. So it can be you walk into the kitchen, all of a sudden you see a plate of cookies. that's the cue. The routine is I got to eat that cookie. Or you walk into your living room, you see the TV is on, that's the cue. You sit on your couch and you watch TV for 2 hours, right? The routine is that act that you're participating in. And what you get after that is a reward. So the satisfaction from performing that habit. So what I noticed before I kind of made this adjustment in my routine, was that a lot of my habits weren't leading to kind of productive routines. And really what I wanted to do was really change that routine. So in the book, I actually, even though it's an interesting book to read, if you don't have a lot of time, I recommend just flipping to the end, the appendix, and it talks all about how to really change this habit loop. So everyone engages in habit loops, whether those habits are productive or not. So the appendix at the very end talks about how to change one's loop. So step 1 is outlined by saying that you have to really identify the routine that you want to change. Step 2 says you really want to experiment with other rewards. Step 3 is you want to isolate the cue, and step 4 is you want to have a plan that works to change this habit. And what they say is the best thing to change this habit loop is to be able to really write it down and reflect upon it. So what I noticed was in the morning, I had atrocious habits, right? My alarm would go off, that would tell me to get up, and I would be getting up at the last possible moment. I didn't really have, my reward was really just getting to work on time, right? I didn't really have a meaningful reward. My habit was just rushing around after the alarm went off. It wasn't a great habit loop I was developing. So what I really have been able to do now with my change in schedule is once that alarm goes off, and what I've actually a kind of a cue that I've kind of changed was, rather than keeping what I used to do before, was just keeping my phone right next to my bedside, which for those who want to get up early, this is a very bad sign, because what you'll tend to do is your phone will go off as an alarm and you'll turn it off, but then, your phone's in your hand. You may watch a couple of videos. You won't get out of bed. You'll be like, I woke up an hour early, therefore I could afford time to just do things that don't include getting up. And, that could hurt you in the long run. So what I did was I kept my phone away from my bed. Once that alarm gets up, that's my cue. I get up. My habit is to get out of my house as quickly as possible to pick up Igor in the morning. And my reward is, it may sound like it's going to the gym, which is an award in itself. But my reward that I tell myself is, if I go to the gym and get my workout done at a certain amount of time, I'll be able to have time to read and write after. Right. And that's kind of a reward I tell myself. Like, I really want to develop my reading and writing. And so if I'm able to get things done on time, get my, a reward is becoming healthy, of course. But the reward I tell myself in the morning is, my reward is I want to have time to read and write before my job. So that's the kind of habit loop that I've developed. And I've developed other kind of habit loops as well. I've tried my best to be able to try to incorporate reading fiction as much as I can, which includes, just carving out a bit of time during the day. And so what I've tried to do, and this is the habit loop that I've talked to Igor about, like I've struggled with, and I still struggle with trying to continue this habit loop. But what I really want to do with this is, at the end of my day, every time my work day ends, is I want to stay, when that bell goes off and tells me the day is done, that bell is my cue that tells me I have to read. So that's my habit. I read fiction for about half an hour after school. And then my reward is being able to finish a certain book that I want to finish. So again, some habit loops are working with me, some aren't. But if you haven't checked out the book, I recommend The Power of Habit. It's a book that has helped shape my own thinking. And it's check it out. And I don't know if, Igor, you think the same thing about whether habits are considered as loops or whether there's something different. I don't know if you want to comment on habits.
Yeah. So for me, I probably should work on the rewards. For me, rewards are probably just the sense of accomplishment of doing it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's like enough, but that is usually what drives me, because I know I'll feel really bad if I don't do it. Don't do those certain things that I want to do every day, like exercise, read self-development, meditate, write, work on YouTube. And like I do take weekends easier, like I still write, but like let's say maybe on Sundays I will spend more family time rather than work as much on YouTube or something like that. But I still write every day. But I have that day or weekend to kind of not be super work mode.
So maybe that's something we talk about rewards. Like rewards don't have to be immediate things, right? Like a reward, like for example, Monday, a reward you could tell yourself is, if I get my work done this week and I start off on a good foot, my weekends will be free to be able to, or at least more free to be able to do these certain tasks that I want to do. So like rewards don't have to be something that you're gonna experience that day, right? They can be things even before you go to bed, that feeling of not being guilty that you didn't do something. So I think
exactly that to me is probably the biggest reward ever. Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, you could continue.
And for me, I've noticed once you develop that schedule, and for me, Monday to Fridays, it's pretty much the same every day. And I have certain things that I do in a row. So it's kind of the idea that bad habits and positive habits are actually not that they don't require different amounts of energy per se. Like, because you get into bad habits, you start doing it. But yet, if you erase those habits and create new ones, replace them with positive ones, it can actually be just as easy to do those positive ones as it was to do those negative ones. For example, now I have a schedule, like I said, where I go exercise, I come home, I write, I work on YouTube stuff. Then later on, I'll read self-development reading, meditate, probably read fiction that I want to read before I die. And I'll kind of go from one to the other, and I know what I'll do after I finish the one step. So in that sense, I kind of don't need to do the thinking. All of a sudden it becomes the positive habits carry me on by themselves because I know what's following up, what's next after that. So it's really cool in a sense, because now, even though most of my habits are positive, I'm not perfect, but I do incorporate a lot of positive habits over the course of the day. It's almost effortless in the sense that it's just natural progression. I go from one to the other because I've just adjusted to that routine. So it shows a way that you can really use habits to become very productive, because even just writing, for example, an hour a day, and if you don't go over that actually adds up. For example, for me with script writing for YouTube, that adds up a lot quicker than you'd think it does, especially because it's that concentrated work. I don't listen to music, I don't leave anything on, I really focus on the work. And over, like, let's say a month, you'd be shocked at how much you finish, how much those little hours every day add up for you.
Yeah, and there's another book that was really influential for me, and if you like The Power of Habit, I think you'll like this book. It's called Atomic Habits. It's been a long day. And what that book, I think one of its main thesis is that, like, building habits is something that takes small steps. So like Igor said, that idea of making a 1% gain every day will be transformative in the long run. So, and a lot of like professional sports teams, if you watch them on TV and you watch the coaches being interviewed and the players being interviewed, they have the same philosophy. So like if you were to interview, for example, the New England Patriots, who's, a very storied football franchise and a very successful franchise, if you were to ask them the first day of the season, what's your goal? They're probably not going to say, I want to win a Super Bowl, right? They won't be saying that on the first day of training camp. They're going to say, my goal is to get better every day, right? The Patriots coach, Bill Belichick, says, every day we just have to work on doing our job, right? Doing our job, putting in the work, doing our job. He never says, we're here to win a Super Bowl on the first day of training camp, right? It's the idea of trying to get 1% better every day. And I think that applies to life, really, right? Life is about trying to get 1% better every day, whether it be to write just 5 minutes more, or to exercise 5 minutes more, to get up early 5 minutes more, whatever your goal is, right? Just try to do just small steps, and you'll see in the long run that'll be huge. Like for myself, just talking about personal experience with my writing, I really tried to, over these past few months, write more. Writing is important to me. I love writing. What I really did, though, was when I first started this routine, this habit, I really started struggling with maintaining a writing schedule. So what I would do is I would spend most of my writing time journaling about my day. That would be the thing that would get me going, right? So I didn't really spend much time actually writing creatively. It was just, writing observational things about my day. And that was how I started writing. And now I'm proud to say that since doing that a number of months ago, I've slowly been able to dwindle my time just writing observational things that weren't really leading to much, but just for the sake of writing and being able to write more creatively. And now I don't even need that writing prompt to start my writing. And did it take a few days? No, it took like months and months to be able to get comfortable with starting to write right away. So just these small steps over time have done a lot. Just like, going to the gym in the morning. When I first started, I could barely run 15 minutes on the treadmill, right? And not even run, like just lightly jog. Now I've been able to comfortably jog at a fast pace for 45 minutes and possibly longer. And did it take, a week? No, it took tons of effort to try to do so. But now I still have a long way to go. But I know that because of the gains I've made so far, I can make more gains as long as I don't choose goals which are outrageous, like after jogging for 45 minutes thinking to myself, okay, so I'm going to run at full pace at 3 hours. Well, no, that's not a small step. Every day you should be making those small steps, and eventually you'll be able to crack that bigger goal. So that's a lot of what Atomic Habits talks about. As well, what it talks about, which is I think interesting, it kind of critiques the power of habit in the sense that it says the habit loops are a bit more sophisticated in the sense that there's kind of a cue, craving, response, and reward, which if you want to learn more information about, you can find it on page 212 of the book. And we're going to have our book descriptions, our book links attached to our description today. So if you want to check out any of the books we talked about, they're going to be listed there. But yeah, I mean, it talks just about those small steps, and that, once we're able to build these certain habits, what's actually interesting about them is that once some habits become kind of unconscious, we stop paying attention to doing them. They just become natural, and we're able to develop other habits as well at the same time. So it's almost, they call it habit stacking. So for example, at the gym, what I'm able to do now is on occasion, I could listen to an audiobook or a podcast when I am doing an exercise, because I've been able to make that first habit loop a little bit unconscious. Like it's just natural. I don't have to really think about it as much. And that allows me to develop other habits at the same time. Just think about just when you're driving, right? You're driving, once you've learned to drive and becomes a little bit unconscious, maybe you're able to listen to an audiobook or listen to your favorite song, things you weren't able to do when you first started because you were so focused on the first habit. So habits are able to be stacked and kind of like Igor said, tracked, such as the example of Seinfeld. So I think what Atomic Habit talks about is the importance of just trying to ritualize the process. And that allows you to slip into kind of deep focus about other things. And yeah, I mean, a very quotable line in the book, which stuck with me, was professionals stick to schedules, amateurs let life get in the way, which is very connective to our book of the month club, War of Art, which is just the idea of, when you stick to a certain routine that's filled with habit loops, you just have to stick to that schedule whether you like it or not. Life's always going to get in the way, and ourselves, what Igor and I have done is, even just going to the gym, we've told ourselves, even if we're sick that day, unless it's something, deathly ill, then we can't say we could go. But, unless we're deathly ill, even if we're not feeling great, we still make that effort to start our day on a good foot. And even if it's putting in the minimum effort, at least we're putting in that work, because really you could always just say, oh, things are going to get in the way. But you know what? Life's always going to be busy, and you have to try to stick to that schedule.
Exactly. And I think one of the main things is from the book, The War of Art, the idea that like professionals show up even injured and like amateurs, take days off. And that idea is so true for writing, for exercise. It's better to put in 70%, 50%, 10% a day than 0%, right? And there's one writer, now I don't remember who it was exactly. And then they're like, do you wait for inspiration? And he's like, yes, luckily it comes every day at like 8 a.m. or something like that. And the idea is, if you show up as like, let's say a creative person or a business person or someone who works out, if you show up, then the motivation will know where to find you. Like the muse as an artist will know where to find you. If you don't show up, then it's going to be impossible, right? So you always want to show up no matter what. And me and Ryan both had days where we weren't feeling super well, but we showed up and, let's say, walked on the treadmill or lightly jogged, or, the point is actually showing up, keeping that habit of going to the gym every day going. I did the same with writing when I wasn't feeling 100%. Even one day hungover, I still went for the writing, even though it wasn't easy, but just to do it, don't be hard on yourself. Make it super easy, motivate yourself, ask yourself, who else would have the courage to sit down every day and write, or the discipline, right? Like it's not very common. So you should just congratulate yourself for the fact that you're doing it. You're actually showing up, you're putting in the time. And I think that's really important. And another thing I wanted to mention was the idea of locations. I know, Ryan, you can talk more about that in a bit, how you always go somewhere else to write. But the idea of not focusing, let's say, where you rest or where you sleep, like your bed, for example, not doing work there, because you're kind of making it more complicated for your brain. It doesn't know if it's supposed to be in work mode or rest mode, so it's important to have, like, let's say, a desk where you usually do work, so your brain knows, okay, it's time to do work. Or when you're in bed, you can relax. I know I don't even keep my phone inside my bedroom. I keep it outside the bedroom so that I won't look at it, right? 'Cause I'll be able to sleep easier. But also, so when I wake up, I go start my day without just getting stuck in bed like Ryan mentioned. So for me, I always have the same place, usually where I do work. And it's definitely not in my bedroom, where I try to create a atmosphere where I can relax. And if you can have a place where you can relax, have a place where you can do work, you'll find that when you work, you're being more productive. And when you're relaxing, you're actually relaxing much more, so you can be even more productive later on.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, I'm just curious, because I'm sure there's people who are listening to this who are into, before I even get to that, actually, I'll just comment on what you were talking about in terms of having to get out. So yeah, a habit routine, a loop that I have is, whenever I want to do any sort of creative work, even quite simply, even sometimes reading, I have great difficulty doing it in my house. I can't find that proper cue that gets me going. So what I do is, a lot of times, and even in the morning, my cue a lot of times for doing creative work or reading is going out and having a coffee somewhere. That's my cue that tells me, okay, it's time to do the work. So I go somewhere, coffee shop, get that coffee. That's my cue. I put in the habit, and then my reward is, whether it be completing the goal for the day, or maybe I reward myself with a second coffee. That's what I do. I have great difficulty doing work at home. And some people who are listening to this may as well. Or maybe some people feel like they do their best work in a home office. Whatever it is, find that place that you're able to kind of go somewhere, whether it be in your office at home, your room, a couch, or even somewhere else, and try to stick to that certain routine of going to that place. Because a lot of times what happens is that place functions as a cue that allows you to get your work done. So anyways, going back to that question I was talking about, I'm curious, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this may be interested in entrepreneurial or business related things. For yourself, Igor, you're technically a business person. You run a YouTube channel. What kind of advice would you give to someone who wants to start something entrepreneurial but is having trouble setting a certain routine, daily routine, or certain habits? I mean, what's something that when you started worked for you, or what's something that maybe, after considering maybe something you did wrong in the past that you wish you did, what's some advice you have to get people to get started?
No, it's definitely an interesting question. And I think for me, it used to be so fun, right? I used to be so passionate about it that even though I had different stuff going on, I was making videos, right? So before it was my full-time job, I found myself almost doing it as a getaway from my other responsibilities. And so I can't tell you it was a lot of work in the beginning before it became a job. It was more so just something that I really liked doing. And it was an escape from like my other responsibilities. I took pride in making the videos. And that's kind of how I went about it. I can't say that at the beginning, I wasn't like work this much a day, right? I was just like, when I felt motivated, I worked, and that's how I did it. Now that it's my job, right, I have more of a schedule. But yeah, the way it started out for me was definitely something bonus, a hobby I really enjoyed. I just did it on the side, and it evolved into something where all of a sudden, since it's a job, you do have to put more hours in, and you don't want to get overwhelmed. Because before, I don't know if it was a mistake per se, but I'd say it would lead to less productivity overall. I would have days where I kind of just threw myself into a specific project, like a video, and then I'd finish that project, and it would take really long. I'd exhaust myself. Like let's say I worked from the morning to late at night past when I was supposed to go to sleep, and it would just be like a mad frenzy of just working nonstop, forgetting to eat, stuff like that, getting lost in it. And that was crazy how much you could accomplish in one day. But then let's say I take a day or more off because of that. And at some point I probably slowed down. It wasn't as productive as I could have been because I was tired as well. So now, since I work a certain amount every day, I can feel almost fresh every day I come back to it. There was something a lot of writers said was, I find that if I write even 3 hours a day, that's more than enough. And then they leave off somewhere where they know what they're going to work on the next day. Hemingway recommended that. And yeah, then you always come back. You leave before you're completely spent, like before you're completely drained. And you come back, and every day it's like a joy to come back to it. And the problem is burning yourself out doing work. You might take longer breaks in between. And that's why now I feel like it's more productive for me to just do a certain amount of hours every day, whether it's 4 hours of working on really important things and then more hours of working on, like, let's say less important things, and then leaving time for like relaxation and stuff, and then coming back refreshed, I think is more sustainable than those mad nights of getting lost like a mad scientist in your work.
Yeah, that's actually, I've never really thought about that. That's actually a tough habit loop to create as well. The idea of, even if you have this creative endeavor that you're pursuing and doing it every day, and you have this cue that allows you to develop that habit, just the idea of being able to let it go for the day, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes, I mean, what drew me away from doing more graduate studies when I was doing my master's was it was just too much of one thing, right? I wasn't able to just put it aside. There was so much to do, and I'd just be consumed by it. So I think, yeah, you almost require another habit loop to be able to know when it's okay to put something aside, whether that be practicing a sport, practicing an instrument, writing, reading, whatever it is, being able to know, okay, this is the cue that tells me, whether it be a certain word count or whether it be a certain form of exhaustion, that time to leave this for today and be excited about having to do it tomorrow. So yeah, I've never really thought about, sometimes, it requires certain habit loops to know when to end other habit loops.
For sure. Because you're thinking probably, hopefully, in terms of long-term sustainability. And in that sense, you want to create the ideal day. I think Jordan Peterson talks about this as well, to create your ideal day that you would actually, not just productivity wise, but you would just enjoy. It would make you feel happy. You'd have the right balance of work, right balance of relaxation, right balance of family time. So you want to create that day, and then it's almost not work doing it because you enjoy every day you created that day. It's like, obviously there will always be tweaking, but that's, I think, going to help in long term. While if you do those mad spurts of creativity or what have you, you'll always feel burnt out for a period and have to wait, and you'll probably be less productive overall.
Yeah, for sure. Now, myself, I'm trying to think. We've covered a lot this episode.
We have.
Is there anything else, Igor, you think you'd like to touch on? We've covered a couple books. Like I said, we'll put it in our description. But ourselves, I think it's very important to say that though it may appear as kind of a facade that we have certain habit loops down pat in our routine. I mean, myself especially, still struggle with other sort of habits we're trying to develop. And listen, if you're human, you're going to struggle with developing certain habit loops in your routine, right? It's only natural. Like I said, one that I'm struggling with is number one, trying to read every day, even if it's a bit of literature. I've been very consistent on that. At night, I try to read a couple self-development, short texts. And there's times where I get home, I'm tired, and I forgo that. There's times where I've wanted for a while now I've been better with creating a habit loop for practicing piano, but I've failed significantly in trying to create a successful habit loop to practice guitar. So, we're still working away at trying to figure out what routine works for us. I think we've improved since a number of months ago, but this is, an ongoing process, and one that whenever I listen to podcasters or read writers, it's something that they never feel satisfied with their routine. It's always kind of a work in progress. And Igor, I don't know if it's the same with you.
Yeah, I'll handle that. I think that's one of the big takeaways I got from the Daily Rituals book, that a lot of these writers we'd esteem as like great and people we look up to also didn't really have it figured out. Like some did more so than others, but a lot of them still struggled with this, how to write every day, and still tweak their schedules and try to force themselves to write every day. And while I was reading, a lot of them compared writing to like a nightmare or like torture and stuff like that, even though they were writers, right? So it was interesting. It's like one person said the joy of writing is nothing compared to the nightmare of starting to write. So there is that constant struggle for sure, and we'll talk about it in the War of Art, that you always have to overcome. Ryan, you mentioned slaying dragons, and that's exactly what it is. You're slaying that dragon of writing every day, and every day there's another dragon that you have to slay, and that's always going to be the case, no matter how much times you do it. You will get, I think, better at it overall, since you realize, hey, I've done this, let's say, 1,000 times. I can do it again, but still, that initial sitting down, it's always gonna be a challenge. And I think I leave off also with some positive habits that I found improve the quality of my day. And Ryan, if you want, you can add that too. I will also say before I get into those that you're completely right. There are habits that I struggle with. I'm still struggling with whether with tweaking the schedule and figuring out if it's like as good as it can be. Obviously, we're always moving towards that Kaizen idea of 1% improvement every day. But yeah, with reading fiction, and I really want to read like works of fiction that I want to get through before I die, and I want to focus on those every day, so making that progress every day. And I've also been struggling with that. I'm reading Catch-22 right now, but I haven't been as consistent every day as I should, because usually self-development reading takes a priority. But as someone who has like an English language and literature background, I do really want to make room for that great works of fiction, and make room for that every day. Habits that I do every day that I think have huge benefits are exercising, and a lot of them I mentioned, but exercising, meditating, and for meditating there's apps you can download like Calm to help you out in the beginning if you want. I still use it just because it's a nice way to track your meditation, but eventually you can move beyond apps or guided meditations. Reading self-development always puts me in the right headspace. Very important habit for me, because although sometimes it seems like common sense, it's like, of course I know this, but you don't think about it unless you actually read it or consume it in some other way. You go into autopilot and you don't realize what's going on, right? You can fall into negative thought loops without realizing you're doing it. But once you read self-development reading, it puts you in the right headspace. It puts you in the right mentality to start your day, and you're going to be much more better off for for the day because you have that positive momentum. Meditation is a great way to actually build that awareness. So you start to catch yourself when you're doing stuff you don't like. Like, hey, why am I grabbing for that treat? Hey, why am I thinking this thought? Like, I don't want to be thinking like that. Hey, why am I letting my siblings bring out this side of me? Like, I don't want to lose my cool. Why am I losing my cool? So you catch yourself before you fall off like the deep end, let's say. So that's very important for me, the meditation part. Writing for me is something that I do at least an hour a day. I'd say whatever your passion is or your craft is or something you really enjoy doing, make at least an hour every day devoted to that. And then otherwise, I just work on stuff that I have to do for business. I try to work on some of that every day. And, sometimes reward yourself by taking a day off. For me, it's Sunday. Like, I still write, but I don't work on the business stuff. And yeah, those are habits that really help me. Waking up early was another one. And Ryan, you can let us know if you have any.
Yeah, I think I spoke about a lot in terms of some of my habit loops, but it's something that's interesting specifically about my own personal schedule that I'm working at now is that currently I'm teaching music and I'm teaching it at two different schools. One's fairly close to my house, one is quite a ways from my house. So my own routine throughout the day and the habit loops that are part of that routine are very different depending on my schedule. So, you may think that, creating a routine is about just keeping that stability throughout the year. Well, listen, if you're working, especially in a kind of a precarious job market or something that requires a lot of travel, your routines are going to have to be adopted. So, very much be open to the idea of sometimes you're going to have to create one set of routines and habits for a certain day and completely change it another day. And I think for myself, what I've been able to do is just being able to try to keep these two very different routines consistent, depending on where I'm teaching for the day. So, be open that sometimes life isn't as clear and stable as it may appear. There's going to be times where your routines are going to be rocked a little bit, and that's okay. Just try your best to adapt to those changes.
100%. And all right, I think that's pretty much it for today's episode on habits and rituals. Feel free to let us know in the comments if you have any rituals you find really helpful. And remind you one more time of the book club, The War of Art. I'll put a link in the comments, in the description actually, for that book if you want to get it, and then you'll have knowledge about it while we're actually talking about it at the last week of the month. And Ryan, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, yeah. Like I said, start if you haven't, try to fit time to read the book. It's great. Right now, I've actually spent this beginning month rereading the book, and I'm actually on to Stephen Pressfield. Actually, I emailed him a little while ago to ask him a question, and he generously sent me a copy of his other book, which is called The Artist's Journey, which is similar to The War of Art, but is different as well. And I've been working myself through that, and again, it's just for myself a very powerful book, and I think you'll find The War of Art, especially if you're in a stage in your life where you're just trying to get started on something. I think on the front there's a quote from Esquire that says it's just a book that kind of kicks you in the ass or it gets you started, and I like that description. The idea of just, it's kind of like a wake-up call.
No excuses. It's no not, writer's block. Yeah, screw it.
It's not something that is trying to give you kind of a romanticized version of writing in very fancy, flowery language. It's really trying to motivate you. It's almost like going to the gym.
Or like working at the salt mines, right? It's like treating writing or business or whatever as very much like another job where you clock in and clock out every day. Yeah. It's not romanticizing it like I need to wait for this precious muse to come my way. Yeah. No, it's sitting down and doing the work.
Yeah, and like I said, like it could be used as not just in terms of writing, but if you're interested in training for a sport or training for an event or even for school, right? It's just that idea of if you're having trouble and you're procrastinating a lot in school, right? It's a great book to get you motivated to stay on task and not procrastinate. So yeah, I'm excited for that. And I hope if you haven't gotten a copy, we'll have a link to our description. I hope you're able to find a copy and read along with us for a book talk at the end of the month. And listen, until next time, take care, and we'll see you next week for our next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.